Stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is it hot in here?
Yep.
Is it what? It's hot in here. That's all right.
Kevin, turn that down. You did go to about 68.
All right, the first thing we have to do tonight is to approve the agenda pending any changes.
There are no changes to the agenda at this time.
Someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
All right, Mr. Wolk,
Second.
Mr. Abrams, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the next item up will be good news, recognitions, and announcements.
Right in the middle of summer, we're about almost a month into our summer break. However, we're engrossed in summer school, and we started the tradition this past fall of having our students do our good news announcements and recognitions, which has just been outstanding. And even though we are in summer break, Mr. Pope, our coordinator of communications, took it upon himself to draft some summer school students into action, and they are going to present about a 4-minute good news recognitions and announcements for us to watch. So, Mr. Pope, you ready? Take it away. We can turn the lights. Sound a little bit.
Hi, my name is Daphne Pellet. I'm Olivia Lincoln.
I'm Elijah Brown. I'm Brandon Reed.
I'm Ryan Connors.
I'm Ashton Ricardo.
I'm Nicola. I'm Amelia Mays.
I'm Elsa Muellersman.
I'm Mason Zen. We are students of Mrs. Thurman's Wannabe River Summer School class.
Here's a look at this month's good news, announcements, and recognitions.
Commencement for class of 2021 was held on Tuesday, May 25th at Tiger Stadium. Despite a light rain at the beginning of the evening, the event began on time. The rain went away and resulted in a nice evening. The district graduated 183 students in the class of 2021. Congratulations to Gina Brantley, who was named the Tommy Alexander winner, considered the most prestigious award a Festus graduate can receive.
More than 200 students were promoted promotion ceremonies during the last week of school. Up to 2 guests were allowed to watch in person while others watched the live stream online.
Summer school is beginning its final week. The last day will be Wednesday, June 30th. More than 1,600 students are attending summer school this year.
The boys and girls track teams wrapped up their seasons late last month. The boys team finished 4th at the state meet in Jefferson City. All state performers include the 4x800 meter team defended their state championship. The team consisted of Colin Creek, Nathan Wolk, Jacob Myers, and Ian Schramm. They finished in first place.
In the 3,200 meter run, Ian Schramm finished 2nd and Jacob Myers finished 5th. In the 1,600 meter run, Ian Schramm finished 2nd again, while Colin Creed placed 5th.
In the 800 meters, Colin Krieg finished 7th and Jacob Myers 8th. In the pole vault, Ian Grant placed 5th, and in the javelin, Austin Anderson was 3rd.
The girls had 2 all-state performances. Kayla Roberts finished 6th in the shot put. Ella Scheid finished in 8th in the pole vault. A number of girls also made the academic all-state track team.
The Tigers baseball team won the district championship last month. The Tigers were the 5th seed in the district. They beat 4 seed Sykeston, number 1 seed DeSoto, and 6 seed Cape Notre Dame to win the title. The Tigers lost to Rockwood Summit in the state quarterfinals.
Mason King, the class president of the class of 2021, has been named Special Olympics Missouri Outstanding Volunteer of the Year from the St. Louis area. She received the honor because of her contributions to the Special Olympics through her work with the Festus High School Student Council and the district's Play Unified program.
State Representative Becky Ruth, President
Miss Granda retired this year after teaching in the Festus School District for 33 years. Miss Foley is retiring after 39 years of teaching all at Festus.
Thank you, Mr. Pope. Anybody have any questions or anything? No? Okay, good stuff. We'll move on then to the consent agenda. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, followed by any discussion.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right, Mr. Abrams,
I'll second.
Mr. Fowler. Dr. Luttrell?
Yeah, we have several, you notice there, we have our times here, we have some board policy updates, and we have quite a few, a section A and a section B. It's not near as bad as it looks. Most all of them are just revisions or updates to ones we already have in place. Basically, a lot of them, some of the main ones deal with some updated policies that extends the tobacco used into vaping and basically ensures that campus facilities and campus is to be vape-free as well as smoke-free. There's some policies updates as well in there on some other matters, specifically the MOCAP, which is the statute that was passed a few years back that replaced MOVIP, and with the online learning for students that want to pursue that avenues. Outlines what the procedures are for that. So again, that's the first reading on those, and we will have them on again next month with the third and final reading scheduled for August. And then also another big one, policy in there that's updated quite a bit that goes more into the policy AC, which deals with the harassment, discrimination, when it comes to not only students, but also as well as among staff. So those are the policies. We do have in there item E, which is we do every year. We are close to the end of June, which in June 3rd is the end of our fiscal year. We pretty well, on the ledgers, you see pretty much the numbers there are probably not, Mr. Holder, when you say 95, 96, 97% accurate. It's just that there will be some final adjustment even in the last week, as we maybe make a few small payments in case we would get a few minor bits of revenue. And so all we're asking on that is just that you allow us to internally make a budget amendment next week that'll actually match our year-end expenditures and revenues, even though we don't know exactly tonight as to what they are, but you can get an idea of what they are from the ledger. And as Mr. Holder will tell you and attest, with the year we've had with COVID, we are very, very pleased with the way that our fiscal year is ending in the way of finances. And I'll talk more about that later in the meeting when we actually consider the fiscal year 22 budget a little bit later. We also have on there, now that hopefully COVID, the biggest portion of COVID is in the rearview mirror, we're hoping, planning on moving forward with having a school year with a full slate of activities for which people can attend and travel. And last year, our cross-country team, which always brings us a lot of positive recognition and has to travel quite a way sometimes to get good competition, will once again have requested to attend the Chili Pepper Invitational, which is one of the largest and high-quality cross-country meets in the not only the mid-south region, southeast or half of the United States, and we're going to be attending that. And anytime we have students that are taken out of school for most of a day and are spending the night outside of the district, we always just get approval on that. And so that's there. That is going to be, I think I did put that there. That actually was canceled last year. They didn't have it, but this year the Chili Pepper meet will be on Saturday, October the 2nd. So that's a little bit of the good news announcements. Not the good news, the consent agenda there that we're going to be looking at some of the main ones along with the ledgers.
Okay, anybody have any questions on anything on the consent agenda? None, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
I'm opposed, yes.
Okay. So we had, do I need to pull, with the nay vote? Or
You probably should, I mean, just if you want to.
will you please pull the board, Ms. Stanley?
No.
Yes.
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 Okay, so that motion does carry. Next item will be communications and reports. So the superintendent's report is first up.
Yeah, you can see that I did include there for your, you see, probably 10 or 15 separate agenda separate attachments. And just, we have tried something new this year, but we have solicited input from our high school students and their parents, those that participated in a mission-sponsored activity under athletics this past year, just to see some consistent questions and that feedback. This is the latest feedback from the spring season. As far as, was listed in the good news, we have had a pretty positive summer school so far. We've completed 16 days of our 21-day session. Our ADA has been very strong, although, as Mr. Holder would tell you, in summer school it's not always about the ADA as much as it is with the total hours that we have in attendance that determines in the end our actual weighted ADA. There's a second session slated for July that will only involve the high school students, for those that may need to earn credits in order to stay up and stay on track for graduation. It'll start on July the 6th and run through the end of the month. And so altogether, we've had a really good summer school attendance. We have to work every day to keep it up, but we're hoping right now we're on track hour-wise, that we're hoping that by the end of the time we can translate that into about an additional, conservatively about 129, 130 additional ADA. Now, why that's so important is normally that's what we always had, okay? But last year with COVID, that wreaked havoc. And so last year with our summer school, we only were able to, because remember it was mostly all online, as well as we had a 2-week right before the school year. And so we actually, wasn't Ms. Holder, it was less than 50, right? It was 59. 59 ADA, so we're hoping we can get that back up to where it always was, to about 128 to 130. Like I said, that's being conservative. So that will be a huge impact in a positive way on our budget if we hold steady and that continues to finish strong. Some of our routine summer projects outside of the projects associated with ballot initiatives, the office renovation projects at the intermediate and high school as a result of adding the security vestibules. We had this intermediate last year, we're adding the high school security vestibule this year. It both require the reconfiguration of the offices. That's going well. I visited those areas this morning, and they're really looking good. They're on slated to be hopefully finished by about the 3rd week of July, in time for whenever the office staff will begin back with schedules and registration. It looks going to look really, really nice. In fact, at the high school, they actually already have the entire additional security vestibule layer intact with all the doors operational, and they actually have, like I said, everything else framed in, ready to finish over the next several weeks. We also have the amphitheater renovation, which is going to convert that into more of a multi-purpose use space. All that demo work's been completed. They started right away. In fact, had a construction meeting this afternoon. First time, one of the few times I've ever heard, Mr. Abrams, that they actually said they're a little bit ahead of schedule. And so we're hoping that, again, in fact, I had to go in and change that. And I say that, the reason I was surprised was because originally we had thought that that was going to be a pretty tough area because of the tightness and access to it, and we thought it might be end of August. First, we were targeting a Labor Day completion because we can make that area inaccessible. But today at the meeting, it was actually, they're very, very optimistic that they'll be done by doing the punch list by around the 10th of August. So that's going to be really, really good and an added benefit very much indeed for our high school programs. And then as we continue our restroom renovations, we're going to do those at the high school and elementary school, one set. Those will begin once summer school is complete right around July 1st. And have those ready to go by the beginning of our 21-22 school year. The Performing Arts Center, that work's progressing. Our biggest challenge, and Mr. Holder can attest to this, is our biggest challenge in that has been the last, since its onset, working with Ameren, because we have the ball field project going, we have the Performing Arts Center going, and part of with the Performing Arts Center, we had to have new power transformers to serve everything. And so to tie it all in, we had to put temporary poles up back that went over where the ball field was going. And to get rid of that, they have to be ready to tie in everything and have the conduit ran underground to tie into the new Performing Arts Center to power all that. And getting a date from Ameren and when they could do that, especially with the spring, with storms and so forth. But we currently finally have nailed down, feel good about that next Thursday after summer school is over on the 30th. That is the date that right now Ameren is set to come in, and we're going to power down the high school, and the Ameren will come in and perform their work to get power into the to the new PAC that's going to serve, and then we'll be able to then deactivate the temporary power that's the poles they put up last summer this time, and then that'll allow the ball field in work to also finish up and wrap up their work. So we're very happy about that, because that'll impact the Performing Arts Center. There's still this, again, today's meeting, still optimistic that they're going to have a completion date. It's during the month of October, which is what it's been all along. It's just a matter right now of whether it's going to be in the first part of October, towards the end. I'm probably leaning up conservatively to say probably near the end of October, that we should know more in a couple weeks. In July, at the July meeting, which is on the 15th, I actually already have scheduled the general contractor, Brockmiller Construction, and their main person, Bill Giesing, along with the architect, will be attending our July meeting, and we'll be providing an update on to where that project stands. I'll talk a little bit more about some of the financing on that here a little bit later when I talk about the budget. Our staffing as we head into next year, most of our certificated staff positions, teaching positions, have been posted or have been filled. We had a couple resignations that came in the last week. Of the 4 new full-time equivalent positions that we added, the 2 school counselors, the elementary classroom teacher, and a SPED teacher, have all been filled or recommended for approval later tonight. And should leave us with, like I said, the 2 resignations we had last week. One, which is more of an expo class, which we should not have any difficulty in filling. The other one would be, because of an internal transfer as a result, probably going to result in a science position vacancy at the secondary level. And so we will be posting that, and hopefully we'll have that, but we're in good shape as we head into August, gearing up in terms of staffing. And then, as I said earlier too, part of my report, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least, like I said, just say this is our last time we'll have a meeting together with Mr. Holder, our assistant superintendent, who was, you said, been serving here since 2013, done a very good job and been a good professional colleague as well as a good friend, and we're all going to be saying farewell to him tonight. I didn't know, Mr. Holder, do you have any words you want to say or anything? I said I might put you on the spot.
I guess I'd just say that the last 8 years have been very enjoyable. It's been a pleasure to be a part of the Festus School District, and we certainly wish you all the best in the future.
Well, you will always be welcome back here at any of our meetings on the third Wednesday of each month.
Each one. What are you going to do with your shirts?
They're hanging upstairs, if anybody would like some.
Okay, well, again, we appreciate all you've done the last 10 years, and we'll miss you.
Thanks, Nathan.
That's my superintendent's report.
Okay. Moving on, we'll get a report on the conference room acoustic.
Mr. Pope is here, and he's going to just give a quick couple-minute update on COVID. Has really, in some ways, been very tough, but it's also allowed us to analyze some of the way we do things. Because we had to go to having meetings here without having the public involved, when we stream live, and we know that setup with the camera and a mic, still kind of doesn't make it convenient now that we can have people back in, but we also now have people that are accustomed to tuning in and like being able to view from home, which many districts do. And so what I would want to do before we came with any formal recommendation or anything without is, I'm hoping that by August, which is the meeting after July, that we can maybe be back to a point where we can have our old setup with people being able to attend. But I need to make just a few minor adjustments to our room here, acoustic-wise, so that first off, we can still stream and also have it streamed live with the camera without having to set the camera in the back and take up a lot of space and kind of film itself. And Mr. Bauman, our tech director, Mr. Pope, have looked into some various needs as to what would be needed to make that happen. And there's two different approaches. One approach would be involve probably up to no more than $2,000, but it would involve mounting some cameras, on the side. And then another more detailed one would be a little bit about 4 times that cost. And we think we would, before we do that, we'd probably be best to explore the very much inexpensive route first to see how that goes. With Mr. Pope, why don't you come, or if you want to talk real quick, just give us some updates on what you've got. You've got a small.
So the first option we have is a system called Owl Pro. It looks like an owl. There are two options for that. The option we would probably do if we went with this would be to place the owl in the middle of the horseshoe, and it has a 360-degree camera around it and 360 degrees microphone. And it automatically focuses in on the person who is speaking. It can detect which person is speaking and will focus in on that person. It's about $1,000 for the camera. It would require a dedicated computer placed someplace in the room, probably in a corner. It does have to be hardwired connected, so there'd be a cable running from that camera to that computer. We'd have to put it on the floor and cover it with some cable covering or something like that. It can be mounted on the ceiling as well, but I think it would probably, we'd be looking down on heads too much. So probably putting it in the middle of the room is the best option. Valley Park has the owl. This is a screenshot from from a recent board meeting. It can also show 3 people at one time, as you see on the bottom. The cross is the 360 degrees. It just flattens it out as a panoramic, so you can see all the way around. The top panoramic can be taken off of the screen, and you just see the 3 big pictures there. But if, for instance, when Dr. Luttrell is giving a superintendent's report, it would just be him on screen. So that's the cheaper option with the $1,000 camera and $1,000 roughly dedicated computer to run it and to get it to the live stream. As Dr. Luttrell said, it would be a camera that would likely be mounted probably in the back of the room. It's a 4K camera that would be able to be remote controlled with like a TV remote control, for instance, like that. It would be able to be remote controlled, and somebody could preset positions and zoom in on those positions. The microphones would be an array of microphones, two arrays of microphones that would probably hang, my guess is, all on the side, which is what those bars are on the bottom picture here. It's an array of, I think it's like 18 or so microphones that picks up the entire room. It is considerably more expensive with a $1,500 camera and $5,300 for the microphones. Installation, and then again, it would require a dedicated computer as well. So about an $8,000 cost on that. So those are the two options that we'd be looking at most likely to install in the boardroom.
Thank you. So again, I was just, didn't know, would you like me to pursue one of the two options and try to have it ready for August? And if so, would you prefer that we maybe experiment with the much cheaper version first? What are your thoughts?
My only suggestion is if we're going to spend any money, it'd be, I couldn't tell from that owl thing you showed there how good the quality was. It looked a little fuzzy. I can see if it would be a little frustrating to try to watch something if you couldn't really see what's going on.
It has decent, the quality is decent. It's not 4K like the camera would be back here, but it's decent enough. It's probably as good as we put it in the middle of the room to we'd be able to see the 7 of you better than we could with this camera back here. And it's probably would be better than even hanging it up there and trying to zoom in on. But it is some nifty technology that we'll be able to detect. It can have 3, if you're having a conversation, 2 different people could be displayed on the screen, which we can't do.
Okay.
The system as well.
Just curious about the quality of the picture.
It's decent quality.
Okay.
And that was a screenshot, so it's a little bit fuzzier than it would be if we played the video, but it's decent.
Either way, even if we did go with the others, we still have the dedicated computer already to apply to the second one.
Yeah, there's a dedicated computer, that dedicated computer to go to either one.
So the worst that can happen is we would have the $999,000.
Correct, and that could probably be repurposed, Mr. Bowden and I discussed, that could be repurposed someplace else in the district for video conferences, or some teaching or something like that. So it could be repurposed if it didn't work as we anticipated.
Okay. Everybody good with Dr. Luttrell?
Ready? I think I'll go for now. We'll try the first, I think before we get too deep, we can see how it works with the cheaper version, and then if that doesn't work, we can revisit that.
Right.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Mr. Pope. Now I believe Dr. Roos will give a presentation on the R6 and 26 strategic plan.
I just have a quick presentation for you. You have the actual draft uploaded for you if you want to read it in its entirety. I just did some quick overview. If you recall, we started this process back before COVID, and then we had to stop and pause, and then we picked it up again. So we've been busy. Just to revisit, if you recall, our magazine version of our Vision 2020 that we worked on took us through our continuous improvement from 2014 until 2020. And we looked at those areas of where were we, where did we want to be. And so when we picked up the meetings again to start the new process of improvement, we did the same type of analysis, looking at where we were, where we are, and where we want to be, leading us into 2026. And we used those same guidelines that we did in the previous continuous improvement plan. We gathered the information, we studied it, we looked at it, we planned for it in a series of multiple meetings, which I'll show you in just a second, and then we actually implement the plan. And our Vision 2020 was very successful. If you recall, prior to COVID, I did an overview for you and kind of showed you which things we had done, where it was a work in progress, and so it always is focused on student achievement. The timeline that we followed this so far, we started back in April of 2019. We began looking at and creating a timeline for our new continuous improvement plan. And then, we gathered that data, as I said. June, we had some team leadership meetings to study and research what we had done and best practices. We had our first stakeholder meeting, if you recall, back in September of 2019. And then another stakeholder meeting. We had a leadership meeting to plan after we gathered information from our stakeholders. And then we actually went and talked to students. We had student interviews at the high school and the middle school, and we gathered their thoughts and our school. And then we had, obviously, our pause from March to March, and then we came back together and we started again. And so this April, we came together as a leadership team. We worked with our representative from MSBA. We regrouped. We took all the information we had gathered prior to COVID, brought it back together, and we started then creating action steps to develop to finish developing our plan. We had another stakeholder meeting in May just to revisit everything, to see if there were any other things that we needed to add after we went through the pandemic, and did we learn anything, or are there things that we needed to include that maybe we didn't realize we needed. So we did that. Leadership team came back together to create action steps, and so that's what we're presenting to you tonight, is just the final draft of all the work that's been going on over the last, actually a couple years now, for you to review. So what you're looking at in your upload, it's all of it. It's the goals, the objectives, the strategies, and the action steps, just so that you can kind of see the work that was done and developed through everyone that was involved. Once you look through that, and if you have any questions tonight, I'll be happy to answer them, but then we'll ask that you give us final approval in July if you approve of the goals and strategies and action steps that we have set forth. So again, I know you can read it, so I just want to go through this quickly. There are those areas, just like we did in the Vision 2020, of academic excellence. So all of these objectives and strategies have to do with academic excellence, and like I said, they were vetted through not just principals, teachers, students, parents, community members. We ask their input. And so you can see having to do with proficiency on our assessments. Of course, that's always something we strive for student achievement. That's an accountability measure. We continued and felt it was important to have that early childhood component in there. We talked about the new MSIP 6 standards that are going to be implemented as an accountability measure for us. And so that has to do with our tiered system of support, the co-curricular activities, monitoring them, because research shows that the more involved students are, the better they do. And so making sure that we have an avenue in which we are monitoring their involvement in school and trying to plug them in different programs. Then the college and career readiness is still a huge indicator of MSIP 6, and so how are we going about that? Making sure we have ICAPs is what DESE has changed to. We used to have the career plan, and now it's an individual career and academic plan that we help students, and that actually starts in middle school. So we have that in place, continuing our course offerings, whether that be a blended model, online, in person, whatever that looks like. Again, monitoring all of that, making sure we're collecting the data. And then overall graduation, because that's obviously what we want to get them to, is that graduation rate. The second goal area is high quality staff, and that's just retaining and recruiting our high quality effective teachers that we have and classified staff. Making sure that we're providing quality professional development, making sure evaluation system in all areas, certified and classified. The third area is stakeholder supports and district operations. This has to do with our support services, our operations, our facilities, and the committee stakeholders that met thought that we needed that caring environment, of course, making sure that we're implementing those things, looking at social emotional well-being of our students, excellence in teaching. We have adopting a comprehensive tech plan, also adopting an emergency operations plan, a facility plan, making sure that we're covering all of those areas in our district operations so nothing goes unchecked or unmonitored. Parent and community engagement, obviously increasing the engagement. We always want them to be involved and be a part of our plan here at school. Developing those partnerships by doing surveys and conferences, which you all know we've enhanced that and tried to gather a lot of input from our stakeholders. And then lastly is the governance piece, which is very similar to what we had in the Vision 2020 plan, because that doesn't change much. It really goes about the board's role in making sure that we're following policies and procedures, making sure we're being good stewards of the taxpayers' money. So that is all of the governance piece. And that's it. Those are the areas. Like I said, it's in its entirety. I uploaded it for you. You can read that. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. We'd like to, as I said, come back in July and get approval, because Mr. Pope and I are currently working on the new version of the actual magazine piece. So when we get your okay, we'll put it into this kind of document. It was very well received and kind of a professional magazine type, and we used it a lot with teachers. We used it in our
and you couldn't lose it.
Yeah.
As a teacher, you could not lose it. It was wherever you turned.
Yeah. So that's what we've been working on.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Roos. Any questions at this time? if we have questions, we email them to you?
Yes, please do.
Okay, so everybody's got that. Moving on then to prior new business. First item there will be to approve the purchase of 2 77-passenger school buses.
Yes, we every year purchase buses for our fleet. We did solicit bids recently, and we had 3 main vendors, limited number of vendors, and that we did have 3 vendors. Those pricings are there. We bid 2 exact same 77-passenger buses, and the low bid was from Midwest Transit Equipment, and the cost was $112,491 per bus. So buying 2, our total cost would be $224,982. The bus, as we said in the narrative there, is air conditioned. It does have cameras that we're used to with our buses. And the only downside, which is always the case with buses, been a little bit more so this year, from the time that, if it's approved tonight, and by the time we get our purchase order signed and sent to Midwest Transit, right now they're looking at least 120 to 150 days before it's able to be to us, which we never really get them until mid-year anyway. So, but we have incorporated this cost, as always. It's part of later on when if you hopefully will approve the fiscal year 22 budget. We do have that cost already budgeted into that into the money. So you can see there. I thought it was, which Mr. Holder can attest, that the interesting thing is that it's pretty competitive business. Those gentlemen that bid for your business do make every effort, and because if you look at the narrative that was written there on the 3 bids, they were overall they were pretty close. There was not a lot of difference between the 2. So would ask again that you approve that bid there as referenced for the buses.
Someone like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve the purchase of 2 77-passenger buses from Midwest Transit in the amount of $224,982.
Okay, Mr. Wendell, Ms. Berzowski, any discussion? I have a quick question. What did the last bus that we purchased cost? You know how much the last bus we purchased cost?
That was about that same, about 105.
I don't remember the exact cost, but I budgeted $230,000.
So similar?
So yeah.
Okay, I was curious.
Yeah, they haven't risen.
Cheaper than a pickup truck now.
Okay, any other discussion on the bus purchase? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Next time will be to approve the bid to purchase 2, I believe these are UTVs for use at Tiger Stadium and the new ball field.
As you know, we at first and foremost, when we redid our stadium and put artificial turf in the first time back in 2010. At that time, we purchased a small ATV John Deere in 2010 to help, because you do have to use ATV when you do the grooming of the field, and when we have different events out there hauling different track equipment, whether it be hurdles, mats, moving from one section of the stadium to another, back and forth for field events. They come in real handy. Well, the one we have is currently, like I said, about 11 years old. More than 11 years has served its use. So we would like to purchase a new one, plus with the new ball field coming in over here, which is also going to have the artificial turf in both the outfield and the infield. We feel it would come in handy a lot, moving equipment back and forth. Another thing is that, as you know, parking around here has always been pretty dense, and sometimes you have to park depending on the event. You might, if you're going to the high school for the stadium, you might be over to the middle school park. If you're going to something at the high school, sometimes you're parking You may have to park at the high school to go down to the ball field, or, so a lot of those things have changed. And so another thing is when we groom the field area with the ball field, one thing that we're really trying to brace ourselves for, that we know is going to happen, that with the artificial turf coming in the ball field, unlike the stadium, it backs up all around to a very wooded area with a lot of trees. And there's no doubt we are going to get an onslaught of leaves starting probably in mid-September through November, while softball season and them are still going on. And so we want to, or who's ever using that field, so we know that grooming of that is going to be a big item. Plus, we still have the, our soccer seasons and our football seasons and our track seasons over at the stadium. And we feel that we could use 2 events. If you notice, those of graduation that we had back in May, people park a long ways away. And we have even used our current ATV, and we've sometimes have borrowed others from different places. Times we do a lot of shuttling, when parents and then grandparents have to park a ways away if they can't get, we have drivers that go back and forth trying to pick up individuals that may need a ride, a shuttle from where they're parking somewhere way off. So we really feel that we could use 2. We did solicit bids. We had 3 vendors that we received bids from. We wrote a spec of what we wanted, and they all bid the same product. And we had 3 vendors. We had one vendor out of Sparta, Illinois. We had another vendor from Union, Missouri. And then we had a vendor from here in Festus. The high bid, they were all 3 pretty close. The low bid, the high bid was $21,028 per unit for a total cost of $42,056. That was from the Union vendor. The next lowest bid was $20,000, right at $20,106. But technically those, they then said we'll just call it 40. And then the low bid was out of Illinois, and that was $39,612. So it was about right at a $330 difference between the low bid and the second lowest bid. And even though the one that was a little over right at $300, $38 higher is the Festus vendor, and it's felt, our recommendation is that we would purchase, if you would approve it, the 2 ATV per bid specs from the local vendor Surdyke Motorsports at a cost of $40,000 for the 2 units, simply because A, first, supporting local, and then B, also, they do sometimes have to have service, and just having that quick access local service right here, we feel would be a plus. And state statute does say that, does not require you to automatically take the low bid. You take the lowest best bid for various reasons, and only if you get higher than 10%, there's a more than 10% variance, you then, statute does require that you state a reason why you didn't go with it. But as I said, the $330-some difference between those 2 is less than 1% difference between the 2. So again, our recommendation is, if you would seek to approve it, would be to accept the bid, approval of the bid from Surdyke Motorsports in the amount of, and I've got $40,212, but the thing, it is $40,000. They said that they would do it for, to provide 2 ATVs per the bid specs. And we would have those by right before the start of the school year, before we started with this fall activity season. And we do have that, not that it matters because it's really 6 one way, half a dozen the other, but if that's approved, we would utilize, those are fund for expense, would utilize funds from our current budget yet on this fiscal year. It would not be out of the next fiscal year funds for that.
Okay, someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of 2 ATVs from Cerdite in the amount of $40,000.
All right, Mr. Fadler, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Abrams, any other discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Next item will be to approve a bid for purchasing and installing a digital sign at the corner of Mid Meadow and Sunrise.
Okay, this is a little bit more complicated. I've been talking to you all for a little, right at a year, that I really think that with the way our district has grown, the way our campus is set up, that we really need to get more of a better presence so that people know when they're entering the campus. And we have the sign, the digital sign currently that was put in about 2008, 2009. That's at Festus Elementary, and it's just a single scroll. Again, it's pretty well, technology's advanced so much further. I really feel that we need to purchase a digital sign that would be the marquee for that corner. The technology is so much better now. The image quality is vastly different from what we had. With the current one we have, you can't get parts for it. You can't even hardly program it. You just got a hard cabling network hookup, which means you got to be within a certain percent. Whereas the new technology, you can program them pretty much from anywhere. And so we solicited some bids back in the late winter, early winter. We had 2 vendors that responded, and it was more of a kind of design build approach. And so the 2 bids we had, they were pretty close, but it's separated here into 2 different costs. There's a cost for the actual sign, okay? And then there's a cost to put that sign in place, the infrastructure, because of the fact it has to be set on something, it has to have supports, and the support that we have there now for the current sign is not near sufficient for what a new sign would be. And so, again, the company also included another quote as part of the cost of what they could put into place, and I uploaded that for you as an attachment. And you can see how the infrastructure piece would look. I think it looks pretty sharp, and would really be a good aesthetically. And for this, however, you can see there though that the infrastructure piece of the sign, when the actual visual for that, the base and everything is pretty complex, and the cost for it, which again it's substantial, is it's a little bit more cost of the sign itself is, but that's what it takes to put that in place if you want to put a nice one into place. So I'm here have the bid and the other piece of this is there's basically, Mr. Pope, you're going to have to help me out here. But there's basically, when it comes to the image quality, the pixels, whatever they call that, I don't know if pixels even the right word now, but the resolution of the images and the graphics, and when you're reading it from afar, they basically have 6mm, 8mm, 10mm. The smaller, the better, okay? And so the vendor Golden Rule signs, the bid that they put in was for and 10mm, and then the other company put in, theirs was, they did both. They did the 10 and they also did the 8, and there's a huge difference in the quality between the 8 and the 10. But the pricing that the 2 of them was, the one company from here in Jefferson County, Warren Sign, their 8mm was cheaper than the 10mm for just the sign of the Golden Rule company that was based out of Kentucky. And so the way you look at this, and like I said, what you have to weigh here is you go to other campuses now, even around town, you see a lot of this is the same type of sign when you've seen. I know that City Hall has put up a new sign in the last 3 or 4 years. The Methodist Church has put up a sign, Ozark Federal. A lot of your school campuses you go to nowadays, they've kind of transitioned to this type where it does pictures, it does video. We could really do a lot with it. And Mr. Pope, you want to add anything about how this type of a sign, what benefits it may have for the district over what we currently have and different things? Or
It's a way, it is the entryway to the district, so it would be a way to welcome people to our campus, and we could play, different kinds of gifts or just short little video snippets, pictures to highlight our students. We can highlight our students with that, and it would be on the elementary, and it would still put a lot of elementary information on there. We'd also put a lot of district information on there as well. Open house information, if people drive by, they'd be able to see that kind of stuff for the entire district. Parent-teacher conferences, any kind of things like that, right there on that corner where it sees a lot of traffic.
So basically we have to decide here, and again, I would also, if this is approved, we would budget this off of our current year as we wrap up now, because like I said, we have finished pretty strong. It would be a Fund 4 expense, but the total project cost for the loan would be the $76,717, and that's broken down with $31,434 for the cost of the 8mm digital sign itself board, and then the infrastructure to mount it and everything, as well as hooking it all up. And that, like I said, that's the part, that in of itself is a little over $45,283 for a total cost there of $76,717. I did talk to the vendor today. We could probably save on the $45,200. We could probably reduce that at least by $1,400, which I'm fine doing, because they did include demoing out, taking out the current sign, demoing all the little infrastructure that's there, the landscaping. Our crew could do that, and have it ready for them. But it's just a matter of, and if I hadn't talked to any of the other student groups about if they wanted to, if any of the PTOs may want to make a contribution towards it. I really think that it's a cost that is going to serve the district well over the next, hopefully if we get as many years. With this current sign, we've gotten almost 12 years out of, 12, 13 years, and I think we get just as many. Our current sign at the stadium, the big video board, which does not have near the quality this one has, because technology was put in 2010 and it's still going. So, I think we will get a good return on our investment, but it's just what you all decide. But I did have a recommendation there listed if you would like to go that direction, and if it's approved, it would be a lot of paid out of this year's budget, not next year's budget, and we would hope that if it's approved, we would also probably hope to have that up. I'm going to say probably, it may not be up for the start of they have to manufacture. A lot of it is tailored with them, and by the time they get things scheduled in, it could be, hopefully, ideally, we would have it in by the start of the school year, but it could be Labor Day. I bet it may not be up and running. But I just put it out there because I've been a while, and just thought, I put it out there for you now at the end of the fiscal year, and y'all can kind of decide if you want to do it, or if you want to just kind of wait a while longer and maybe see what else might develop down the road. But if you'd like to do it, it's in this year's budget, minimal impact, but I do think it would add a lot of opportunities for us to highlight a lot of our achievements across the district for more people to view and see.
Anyone care to make a motion, have a discussion?
I'll make a motion. So I'll make a motion to recommend the purchase of installation of a digital sign per bid specifications for Warren Sign Company in the amount of $76,717, which includes the sign and materials and labor.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Mr. Volk, a second from Mr. Fadler. Any discussion?
Do we have to check with the city for changing this? We already have?
We have when we spent a couple weeks, and the last time that the vendor, the company that has this went to talk to, because they will handle all that, the person at the city that handles a lot of that, now this was 2 weeks ago, was out, just, you know, but we do have to get their permission. And I think, we think we will, because it's LED, and in fact, it will put out less resolution brightness-wise at night than the current, because it's you can set it to dim it down real low and different things, but you never know. But no, it would be contingent upon getting approval from the city of boards.
Does the old one, can we sell it?
We could try. You know, it's temperamental, but we can try.
Well, we were gonna sell it, we probably wanna have them take it apart instead of our guys get in there.
No.
If we, I don't even have a clue what if it's $1,400 out of it for that.
Yeah.
I don't know what you can get out of it, or don't have a clue.
May not be like Doug says, may not be $1,400.
Yeah, that's true.
Paid them $1,400 to get $500 back out of it.
Is
We just mail it and then try to sell it and see what happens.
just throwing it out there, it says Festus Elementary School on the sign, and the other one does with
Festus School District. Yeah,
just have Festus
Mr. Holder and I have
School
had that
District.
comment.
If you're gonna use it for any of the.
Yeah, they just took that mock-up off of what we had, but we do think now that that's this interest, we could put Festus School in, and then we could still tie in some other things to even though it.
Okay.
Yes, I agree.
Any other discussion, questions?
I just have one. I'm ignorant of all this, you know, kind of building and stuff, but when I read the excavation clause and electrical clause, they can't tell that those things are gonna go wrong when they do their estimate. They can't? I don't know. I know you can't tell rocks, but, no? Yes? I don't know. Again, I'm ignorant of that.
I am too, but no,
Oh.
I just know that, I think a lot of that has to do with just, again, until they get underneath there and see what,
Okay.
you know, what type of, because it is underground, and, but he wasn't real, I think it's more of just, they just put that out there, but I don't think he was anticipating any real problems.
Anytime you're doing something that you can't see,
Then they have to do that.
contractors typically give
Sure.
themselves
Okay.
an
Thank you.
opportunity.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carries. That takes us down to the fiscal year 22 district budget with supplemental MOU document.
Okay, I'm going to try to go through this as brief as I can, but this is where we have to have a new budget in place for the school district by the July 1. And so, again, Mr. Holder has spent a lot of time the past months finalizing our current fiscal year and then planning for next year, which is always a challenge. And so the budget that we presented, you do have a hard copy of it uploaded. You also have the paper copy that we put at your desk, which again, I do encourage each of you, which I know many of you already have, but it's just a good resource to keep at your disposal all year long. But just some of the highlights of this budget is it is a balanced budget included within the budget, and this total budget here is has total overall expenditures of close to what was it, about 35 million, right at 35 million budget, which is considerable amount. I know when I first came to Festus School District back in 2008, our budget at that time was around 26 million. So I mean, it's, you know, continue to grow, and of course salaries are and insurance are always a big part of that, of any school district budget. But this budget does include salary enhancements for both classified staff as well as our certificated staff, as well as, you know, our administrators, our teachers, our aides, our custodial staff, transportation. The salary enhancements on average across the board about 4.3% above whatever salary that a person is currently making according to our schedules and pay levels. We do, as always, have a few additional areas that we've tried to enhance on top of the 4.3%. One of those big ones is We know this past year how valuable all of our staff are, but our nurses this past year really answered the bell. And what we want to do with the nurses is move them to where the beginning salary for a school nurse is eventually would be equal to 90% of what a base teacher's salary is. But we don't want to get there, we can't get there overnight, so we're looking at, for this, in this budget, if it's approved, it would move the starting salary for the nurses to 80% of the base teacher's salary. And then in next year, in fiscal year 23, it would go to 85%, and then in fiscal year 24 would move to get to that goal of 90% of the base teacher salary. We also have some 12-month office administrative support individuals that, again, we want to make sure their pay keeps pace, and they would receive an additional enhancement at an hourly rate. We also have some other positions that we're tweaking to get more in line with whether it due to merit or whether it due to just making sure that they're equal across the board. And we also have, just as our staff can move lanes if they complete degrees, same as we kind of try to do the same with our administrators, complete various levels of study. There is also notes to look at that right now as we look for the fiscal year. Well, first off, as we finish our current year now, without saying too much, and this is of our Fund 1 and 2. There's 4 main funds that we operate out of, Fund 1, 2, and 4. And Fund 1 and 2 is your general revenue fund, your teachers fund. Our current fiscal year that we're wrapping up, we right now are estimated to end the school year, our school year budget, after all of our expenditures, including some of the ones you've approved tonight that I said would be covered, even though they're Fund 4. But in Fund 1 and 2, which is the general revenue teachers, we're looking at ideally conservatively of finishing the year right at $2.2 million to the good, which is really good considering, how we started and where we didn't know where we were going to be with COVID. But I will say the state did come in and they were able to fund all the withholdings that they withheld did get paid out. We did get, of course, some county funds, state funds last spring that helped, but pretty much we were made whole, but we did have a very good year. So finishing to the good with our current fiscal year. Fund 4, we've said the last 2 years, at one point, we had that steadily at $3 million. And we said it wasn't a savings account, and that we wanted to pay down some of our projects on our own instead of just relying on our lease purchase funds from our ballot initiatives. And so this year shows that we would be, like I said, right at about 1 point. If we even have, this was printed out before the expenditures tonight, but we're looking at having probably going to start out in the year with about 1.1, a little over $1 million in Fund 4, which again, that's with our maximum transfer, putting that a little over $1 million to replenish that. Now, that being said, remember, when we're doing the Performing Arts Center, which was Prop F, we also had we knew that because of the expense, we were going to have to spend some of our own Fund 4 money. And so we have paid and we actually made a payment here this month to Brock Miller on that, one of our payment apps, of nearly $750,000 right out of Fund 4. Okay, and that's after that payment. Okay, which I say that to mean is that while 1.1 million may not sound like what we're used to, but with most of our Fund 4 for this next year expenditures already accounted for, and we will have very little obligation on the Performing Arts Center, because the rest of it will go through the lease purchase route, is that if we make next year we get to this point, we don't, like if we had not made, had we not chose to make the nearly $750,000 payment straight out of Captain Fund 4, and then we would have been well over 2 million. Okay, so going into next year, fiscal year 22, we're in a great position because we won't have that obligation next year in front of us. We would be able then to have our Fund 4 with our maximum transfer get us well back in above that $2 million threshold, which again gives us a lot of flexibility to do things outside of what our lease purchase projects are that were through the ballot. As we go into the wellness center, early childhood, classroom space, it's nice to have that. And then, moving then on to, we wrap it up. Like I said, we think that our Fund 1 and 2 unrestricted balances, when we do our Secretary of the Board report, remember the board has that kind of unspoken goal that we want to try to keep our Fund 1 and 2 unrestricted ending balances on June 30th each year to in and around 30%. It's been as high as 36. It's been as low as about 22 or 23 over a course of about 20 years. But it's usually stayed close to that 30%. But again, we also knew that with our projects that we've taken on the last 5-6 years that we were going to drop that a little bit. And we did last year. We took that hit with COVID, with lack of funding. We actually dropped, what was it, about 27%. We do feel that even after our maximum transfer over and we pay all of our bills, we think our unrestricted ending balances will go from about 27%. We think, and it's going to be pretty much, Mr. Holder, closer to 30, right at close to 30. So we're actually increasing our balances back to that 30% threshold, which again is what the board is all, and again, most districts do not keep that high of a percentage, but again, been very fortunate to be good stewards with our funds. So the other thing is about, like I said, the budget for next year right now, I told you we ended this year about 2.2 million to the good. It's always hard going in to know what you're going to do, but right now, just what we know, a lot of it, we already know that if it's approved right now, we're already looking, I think we're going to at least be around 250,000 to the good. Now, that'll probably grow quite a bit as the year goes on, the new fiscal year, but we're starting the year well into the black in a good way. And the other thing about this budget that I'll talk more about in the weeks ahead, and once Mr. Earnhardt comes on board, he'll walk us through more of this. But one thing that the budget right now does not really include any funds with is all the ESSER money. We've got ESSER funding in round 2 that was passed back, when was it, December, and there was another ESSER round that came in. Those guidelines on what you can spend it on and what you can't are still being developed. And so we really don't know, so we haven't even touched our ESSER money yet. And the ESSER funds that are allocated to us, now again, there's going to be stipulations on it. It's not just free to go out and buy what you want, but again, there'll be more on that, but our ESSA allocation is, going to be rather extensive. And we are waiting on what the guidelines are because, again, I think for our situation, especially if our enrollment continues to increase, we want to spend that money on one-time expenditures as much as we can so that we're not obligated continually. And so, I know we've always got capital project needs in terms of facilities with classroom space, the early childhood program that we're trying to get up and running by the fall of 23. So that would be my recommendations. We study it more if we can to try to use some of it for facility enhancements that would also help us with COVID because we'd have more space. However, there isn't one requirement we're waiting to get more feedback on. If there is a requirement, apparently in the ESSER 3 money, that of your allocation, you have to spend at least 20% of that money on addressing learning loss that happened during the COVID. And now how you define learning loss, what that looks like, we're waiting, but we will be having those discussions. You also have to have, as Mr. Woke and I talked last week, there are also some stipulations that we're waiting guidance on about. You're supposed to also solicit input from, some of the stakeholders as to how they feel, what they think maybe some uses of the bus money and uses of that money might be. So we're in good shape. Like I said, it's a good budget. Like I said, I will give Mr. Holder, like I said, a lot of credit. He is very astute at keeping on top of the finances and guiding the ship to make sure that we stay financially solvent and in good shape. And I think that, again, even though he's departing, we're going to continue that trend as has been for decades at Festus. We're going to be in good shape. The budget also is conservative, and this isn't a reassessment year, which impacts our assessed valuation on local revenue. This budget is built upon 2% increase with assessed valuation. That's, again, a little bit conservative. We're hoping, though, but the big thing that we haven't had to face prior is in a reassessment year, if your overall assessed valuation goes up, say 8%, 9%, 5%, you can only capture the amount that's equal to the consumer price index. And so the consumer price index is 1.4%. And so if our assessed valuation goes up 8%, we can only capture though 1.4. Okay. However, new construction, which we know there's a lot of new construction going on in residential, we are able to collect every penny, every bit of the new construction. Now next week, we're hoping we should get our first certification from the county as to what our assessed value, where we'll be able to tell right pretty quick what we're looking at. Now that we get 3 of them before we set our, we get one in around July, 1st of August, and then we'll have another one right about the time we set our hearing, or right after in September, and we have our tax rate. But what's probably going to happen is, because I do know that everybody, I think we all know that the reassessment, everybody's property, we know what the real estate market's been. While everyone has seen hefty, healthy increases in their own property, especially the residential, we can only collect 1.4% of that regardless. And what that helps the taxpayer though is, we will, when we set our tax rate hearing, we make up for that, we'll have to, our levy, our seal, what is it, Mr. 433 something, we'll probably have to roll, we could have to roll back our tax rate as much as, what, 9 cents, 10 cents?
Yes, it depends on the certifications that we get, but it's very likely that there will be a rollback of at least a nickel or a dime.
Which goes back to what statute, the Hancock Amendment passed years ago, basically that is again to protect the taxpayer, that when time, we shouldn't be able to get both. This, now when I said this is the first time this has impacted us, the statute also reads though that if you go to the ballot and you have a ballot issue where you're asking the voters to approve a levy increase, you get to collect the full 100% of all the assessed increase if it's successful. And if you remember, we were at the ballot at 15, passed, we didn't have to worry about it. 17 at the ballot, passed, didn't have to worry about it. 19, didn't have to worry about it. Well now, 21, this is the first time we haven't had to, we've got to do that. And eventually it'll all come out in the end. It'll take a while, a couple of years, but we will eventually get it all. It's just that it's a way to try to, it doesn't put it all on the taxpayer if your district is experiencing, a good growth in AV. So that's a little bit of the budget. And like I said, I did want to add that again, we did have good discussions. I want to thank some of the board members gave up their time back in May to have some negotiations with our FNEA Executive Bargaining Unit Group. We did have good collaboration. Mr. Holder and I did even before that for several months with several of the leadership there. And in fact, I think they're very pleased if this memorandum of understanding that's part of the salary enhancements for classified and certificated staff is approved as part of the budget. I know I did speak this afternoon to one of the leadership, and they just passed along that just as kind of a, they always ask their leadership, ask all their membership, hey, this is what could happen in terms of the budget and the salary enhancements for the next 3 years, because this is a 3-year agreement. Said that they put it to, they actually, not that it's binding or not, but they put it to a vote of the membership, and of the membership that was able to take time to vote, say yes, they agreed with they thought it was a great proposal, or no, it wasn't. Of those that voted, and I don't know how many it was, but there was 100% that said they approved of the package. So that was very, again, which it is a very generous package. I think that rewards for a lot of hard work this past year, moving forward. It will keep us, at least for next year, #1 in the county in terms of beginning teacher salary. Our base salary currently, which we didn't increase this past year, is $39,700, which was the highest in the county. Some have moved higher than that now, went to 40, but if this 4.3% is approved, our base teacher salary for next year would go to $41,200, and then the following year, in fiscal year 23, would go to I believe it's 42,000, Mr. Holder, and then in fiscal year 24 would go to 43,000. So again, continued healthy increases that will allow us to continue to attract and retain our staff, because they really do a great job.
Okay, a lot of information there, a lot of numbers. Anyone have any questions? All right, would someone like to make a motion to approve the budget as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2022 district budget along with the supplemental MOU.
Okay.
I'll second.
Mr. Whittle, Ms. Berezzowski, any other questions or discussion?
Thanks for all your hard work.
Yes, both you guys,
Said Mr.
all three of you
Holder,
guys. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carries. And the last item for open session tonight will be discussion of vacant Board of Education position.
Yeah, we, last month we did, as you noticed, we announce we had a resignation from one of our directors, and I did include there what the board policies outline about vacancies. And essentially, I said we discuss it in the coming months, so I put it out there for you all to decide. Basically, you can appoint a person. You can take applications, go through them, interview or not, just appoint, or you can choose to go with 6. And then the person would, and then when filing opened in December, whoever would then run for a 1-year term, kind of like Doreen had to do. And for the April, which would be good, then to finish the 3-year term till 23, then they could, if they want to choose to run for a full 3-year term. But I know we've never really had any big ordeal about having a quorum or worried about getting the majority votes, because I think you all are always very astute about doing your homework, studying the issues. So it's basically, depending on what lens you look at it through, just kind of need to decide, because I mean, there's an article in the paper, we did have some individuals express, ask some questions, and I told them, that at some point in this summer, the board would probably decide whether they were going to how they were going to approach this, whether they were going to just try to move ahead with 6 and they have the problems, then maybe look at a point, or if they were going to maybe look at filling it now. So I just thought I'd give you all some time to kind of share some of your thoughts.
I have a thought. You guys may or may not agree, but I'm comfortable with our 6 number currently. You know, we went through this process before. What I fear that could happen is if you have 4 or 5 people that are interested and they're each going to have their supporters, you know, rather than have the voters elect somebody, you know, 6 of us are going to pick somebody, and do you disenfranchise the people or the supporters of the people that did not get picked? Or is there, you know, there's always, you know, you can have accusations of favoritism or trying to align yourself with people or groups, which, whether it's fact or fiction, those are the things that come out. And to me, it's almost better to wait and let the voters decide who they would prefer to be on this board, rather than us select somebody and maybe it not be the first choice of
Those
the
were
voters.
my thoughts also. I thought the same. Well said.
But I'm open to whatever, I mean, you know, whatever you guys think or other opinions. That's just my opinion. And sounds like Ms. Berezzowski's on the same page as me.
I will go with the majority, but I do feel that an extra voice on the board would be welcome, no matter who it is. But I will go with whatever.
I mean, that's a valid point too. I mean, yeah, more opinions can be more constructive.
Or detrimental.
Either way.
I don't have a preference one way or the other.
Yeah, I don't either. Whatever everybody decides.
You want to mull it over another month?
And we can take another month and consider and then maybe vote at the next meeting. If that works for everybody, we just have an item, Dr. Trud have a vote at the next meeting.
Good.
Let's do a roll call vote, and however it falls out, it falls out. The majority wants to, and I think we should decide if there is a tie vote. We can decide that tonight. If there is a tie, will we move forward or not move forward? That should be, does anybody have an opinion on that? Without, I would think if there's not, my opinion on that is if there's not a majority, there's not a majority. If it's a tie, then.
If it's 3-3, that's what it would not go on.
There's all coin flips, so.
Okay. Okay, so we'll take a vote at the next meeting. Everybody has some time to think about it. And if anybody wants to share ideas, you know, we can do that. Okay? Does anyone else have anything for open session? If not, I'll entertain a motion with a roll call vote to enter into executive closed session with a closed record and closed vote pursuant to RSMO 610.021. Sections 3 and 13. Mr. Boyle?
Second.
Mr. Evans, will you pull the board, please, Ms. Stanley?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break here and then we will continue forward.